Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Good evening. It's been about a week or so since I came live. I had a fever, that's why I couldn't. And then, of course, I went to J. Deepak's debate and book meetup as well with fever while having antibiotics and paracetamol. That was fun. Today, we are going to discuss a man called Jayant Bhandari. We are going to discuss one interview of him and one sort of a monologue that he gave on his own channel, okay? He is pretty popular among libertarian circles. How many of you all follow or know any libertarian personally? And or do you think of yourself as a true libertarian in your heart even? If you are a very staunch and radical libertarian, almost let's say if you are an anarcho-capitalist, then you will probably really like this guy, and you probably already listen to this guy a lot, and which means you probably hate BJP with all your guts. Hating BJP with all your guts because you are a libertarian might be misplaced a little according to me, but the criticisms might be legit anyway. But remember that, let's say if you have a broken arm and a person who usually hates you and your neighbor, okay, makes fun of you every day. He sees your broken arm and again makes fun of you for having a broken arm, says that, haha, you have a broken arm. That does not mean you actually don't have a broken arm. You still need to fix your broken arm. So with that mindset, we are going to watch today this person called Jayant Bhandari, who may or may not be on the payroll of the Chinese government, etc. That's not really a concern. We are concerned with how many of his criticisms of India are really legitimate. Because, of course, if someone says that India is bad because of this, and he gives 1,000 reasons, there will be, of course, at least 5 or 6 which are probably correct. So it's not our concern whether Jayant Bhandari is a paid agent or not. It's our concern how much we also agree with him about these problems that India face. Now, this live stream today is not going to be for the faint-hearted patriot, okay? This is not for you. You are going to be pissed off out of your mind. You are probably going to throw your laptop on the wall. You are going to try to break it because of the things he's going to say, because of the because of the way he's going to say those things, okay? He is staunch hater of India, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Jainism, Sikhism, Indian subcontinent, Indian government, Indian bureaucracy, everything. So he is very fair that way, at least. So that is why I took him seriously in the first place, because he was not just saying that only BJP is the problem, only Hindutva is the problem. No. Right now, these things are in focus because these narratives are in a position of power. Therefore, his ire is usually faced towards these topics. But when the time comes, he hates everything else about India, Pakistan, Bangladesh equally, okay? And sometimes he gets things disastrously wrong, suspiciously wrong. That's what makes me curious whether he might be on a payroll of some evil government or not. And for example, at one point he shared the clip of those parliamentarians beating up that guy who threw that smoke canister inside the parliament, and shared that on his Twitter, saying that, see, this is the condition of Indian parliaments, that people are fighting inside that instead of debating. Okay, so it's kind of fishy. And one other thing is that he actually is against democracy. He has openly said it for years in different interviews that democracy does not work, and because of democracy, that's another reason for him to hate India. He thinks Nehru was the pretty much the best prime minister India has ever had. Since Nehru, it has been downhill. That's the sort of a core thesis of his position. And he says that CCP is kind of good. S. Jaishankar is kind of a well-spoken person, but he's still sort of a lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And on Vivek Ramaswamy, he says that, he is okay with him, okay? Because some people were pointing out that, okay, some foreigners were pointing out to him that, okay, Indian society, Indian culture, Indian history are maybe all bad, but why does it keep producing so many talented people? How did Vivek Ramaswamy come about? whose father still regularly visits India, who is a devout Hindu, etc. So he says that, yeah, he kind of is good. I'm okay with him. He's not that perfect, etc. So now let's get to his views. Okay, let me check some comments before that. Jai Shri Ram Ninar, Jayant Bhandari Ghochu hai. He is a coconut. Sri Ayyar and AM. Yes, I saw that. I also saw that. It was fun. I think people give AIM too much of a lieu for being a good entertainer, probably, but his lack of expertise about everything is starting to show. That's actually true. From Nehru, we were going down in general, leave out Modi. Yeah, that is true. That I really wanted to see your reaction on the Vivek Ramaswamy stuff. Yeah, we will. Oh, reaction on what particular stuff? Will you watch East Bengal versus Mohun Bagan on 19 January? By the way, which club you support? Do you think India can defeat Uzbekistan today in FC Cup? I don't follow football that much, but I'm an East Bengal supporter, obviously. Okay. Let me cast the first video. So I will show you Jayant Bhandari's videos in the exact same order that I watched them, okay? I watched this interview of him with some Chinese guy. Actually, that Chinese guy was being pretty fair in his questions. But Jayant Bhandari deterred him from being too fair about asking questions about India. And then we are going to watch his the monologue he did, and then we are going to check out his Twitter, okay? His Twitter account is very interesting. That is where we will get a lot of hints, because many NRIs, many Indians even, have this idea that India is all bad, India ka kuch nahi hoga, India is full of corrupt people, etc. We are corrupt by birth, our culture is corrupt, etc. That's why we are corrupt, etc. But they say that once in a while in a party, maybe once in a while in a political discussion with some friends over a cup of coffee, and then they move on with their lives. Jayant Bhandari's single point agenda on his Twitter is to post that India is a bad country. Only this topic, okay? Only the fact that India is a bad country, and say that 1,000 times a day, each and every day, month after month after month. That's all his Twitter is about. That's what gives me the impression that he might be paid by somebody, but that is not our concern. That is just a fun trivia to know. Okay, let's start.
A simple question. What is in your surrounding that has been made in India? Do you have a response to that?
Billy, I'm happy to be joined with Mr. Jayant Bhandari. Give a self-introduction to our audience, please.
Thanks for having me here, Zafir. My name is Jayant Bhandari. I live in the United States, and I consult institutional investors on investing in private companies and in the stock market. I also do a lot of writing work on cultures and economics, and I speak at a lot of conferences and some philosophy conferences as well.
Mr. Andrews, I don't know if you know, several of your videos got viral on Chinese content platforms. People are saying your statement that India will never pass China is somewhat spiritual Chinese in a way. Are you still believing that India will never pass China, judging on the current situation?
Yeah, this is very interesting. A couple of times a year I'm in China. And I often have this discussion with people when I'm traveling in China. When I tell them that India will never surpass China, in fact, Zafir, the reality is that you should never be comparing China with India. These are two different planets. When I go to China from India, I have to remind myself that I'm not in a first world country. That is how different China is from India today. And the difference between China and India continues to grow. Chinese economy on per capita basis is 550% that of Indian GDP per capita. In 1970s and 1980s, China was behind India in GDP per capita basis. What you see.
Okay, we know this history that how when in China's GDP was also low, India's GDP was also low, how it increased, how India's did not increase. We know that history.
Is differential between Chinese GDP per capita and Indian GDP per capita continuing to increase. And what you also see is that inequality is continuing to increase in India.
The one thing I want to clarify to people is that my mom follows a lot of Chinese travel vloggers, okay? And because of that, luckily, because I don't follow travel vlogs, because of that, I know that actually what he's saying that China is a first world country, India is not. That's actually because he knows more about India because he's an Indian. He was born in Madhya Pradesh. He was from Indore. And once or twice he comes back to Indore. But he does not go around roaming about in the entirety of China. So he does not know what is the condition of China outside the main cities, okay? So that's like saying if you come to West Bengal and you go to only Rajarhat and Newtown, you will think West Bengal is a first world state, okay? So, in the rest of the Chinese rural areas, okay, there are steep mountains where there are only ladders for you to climb, okay? No steps even, okay? And women, mothers, are carrying two babies, one baby on her chest, tied up with ropes and stuff. One baby on her back, and she's climbing up those ladders to get to her home from the marketplace. That's the life of a Chinese villager. This person does not know those things, okay?
And that's not what I see in China, because the lower class in China is becoming increasingly rich with time. And moreover,
lower class of where? Lower class of cities maybe, not lower class of entire China.
India is falling apart. Indian economy has been...
Yes, Jersey, Chinese infra is very developed in certain places. Like India's is also developing now in certain places.
Is stagnant for almost 5 to 10 years now, if you look at the median income per capita.
Okay. Some would argue that for a country...
Yeah, medium income per capita and especially adjusted for inflation is pretty sad, because we are spending so much on freebies. Now, again, the argument for that would have been, ideally, if Narendra Modi was a libertarian, that, okay, they have been poor up till now, let them be poor for a little while and let the market take its own course. But since as a society we have decided to go with freebies to solve that problem, and it's not like USA does not do freebies, it's not like China does not do freebies, it's not like any country is a true libertarian heaven. So because of those freebies, the middle class's back is being broken or is being handicapped, okay? So we are paying for those freebies, and that's why our income is not going up too much when adjusted for inflation.
To be a powerhouse, the fundamental two parameters will be a huge land and very much population. So judging on India as being the biggest populated country in the world, how do you view that kind of statement?
That statement makes absolutely no difference to anyone, really. Look at Hong Kong or Singapore. They are dots on the map of the planet, but they are visible to everyone. Everyone knows what these countries stand for. So it does not matter how big, how many people you have. What matters is what is the productivity of those people and how much do they contribute to human welfare. Now, Indian manufacturing is about 2 to 3% of the world's manufacturing. Trade is about 2 to 3% of the world's trade. So it is an insignificant trade and manufacturing of the world. The world does not care.
Yeah, at the moment. He will mysteriously conflate between things that are wrong at the moment and then bring up some factors about historically wrong things that have been going on in India. And then again say that, see, because it's wrong at the moment, it's going to going to be wrong forever and ever. Even though the changes, the motion, things have been set in motion to change those things already. It's going on at the moment to change those things, okay? Either he's not aware of those things or he mysteriously avoids them. Okay, Shunokra is saying, but 80% of Chinese population reside only in the cities. I'm not sure if it's 80% because any stats that come out of China is suspect. Their GDP per capita, everything is suspect, which is why yuan will never take over dollar, will never replace the dollar in a de-dollarized world, because no one trusts the yuan currency, okay? Because who knows what bookkeeping they are doing, because it's an institutionally corrupt country. And but my point is, even if it's 20% of China living in those climbing up the ladders to climb up a mountain with a old mother with her babies on her back, that still shows that the dreamland, that the Disneyland that he's making China out to be, it's not.
Here, so let me ask you a simple question: what is in your surrounding that has been made in India? Do you have a response to that? Probably nothing. There might be a couple of things from Bangladesh, but there's nothing made in India. Let me tell you, just about everything you see around me, despite that I'm not in China, has been made in China. That is the difference between the two countries. Now,
interesting thing now that he does not live in India, okay? He lives in USA. He is making out to be like, see, even I'm an Indian, but I don't have any Chinese products. But you don't have any Indian products. Why is he, as an American, why is he surrounded by Chinese products? That's the question he should ask to his government. He's an American citizen now.
Now, Zephyr, I'm an Indian guy. I grew up in that country. I want India to do well. But
No, that is what I was under the impression as well, that maybe he's saying these things like when even Abhijit Iyer Mitra criticizes some things about India, he does not actually want India to do good, okay? Otherwise, he would not be hilariously unfair in some of the criticisms, like people fighting in the parliament, etc.
facts are facts and the truth is truth. So I have to speak what the truth is.
What are some reasons that you believe India will never surpass China? Because some would argue that a big population, and some will argue it's exporting a huge amount of most talented, scholars, and even we see Indian people being prime ministers, but we don't actually see much Chinese prime ministers in UK or other Anglo-Saxon countries. So people will argue both on a mass scale, the level of population, India is number one right now, and exporting so many talents overseas. So why do you think India is not going to surpass China, if not considering it on a financial or economic way?
Okay, so that makes the situation much worse because the very best of Indians are actually rapidly leaving the country. They are
Okay, this we have to counter. They are not rapidly leaving all of a sudden now. They have been leaving the country for 100 years, for about 150 years. Sri Aurobindo's father himself sent Aurobindo and Barin Ghosh to England and told them that you will not be an Indian. You will not behave like an Indian. You will not talk like an Indian. You will not read or think like an Indian. You will have to be as British as possible. And then it backfires and they become more Indian than anyone else. But that trend has been going on for a long time. It's not a new all of a sudden aaj subah se ho raha hai, that kind of a phenomenon. It's a long history. There are long historical reasons for this particular thing, for this brain drain.
jumping the ship because the ship is starting to sink. And that is why a lot of best people from India have left for the United States.
They have left, yes.
The best people of China increasingly return back to China.
Here is the fun part. He was saying that China is basically a first world country. It has been a first world country compared to India, at least for about, 30 years now. Okay. Then why only now some Chinese are thinking about returning to China? India is far, far, far behind China, right? Then why is people leaving India such a big surprise? Whereas if China is such a Disney fucking land, why are Chinese people returning to China? They're still only thinking about returning to China. Some are contemplating about returning to China. Okay, that is the curious part.
China. I live in San Francisco and I meet a lot of Chinese there, and a lot of them either return back to China or they aspire to return back to China.
अच्छा. इतना first world country है क्या aspire कर रहा है return करने का?
I meet no Indian who ever wants to return back to India.
Yeah.
So this is one big problem because the very best people of India have left India and they continue to leave India.
True.
Which means that the leadership in India has become non-existent because all the best people are gone. If you go...
That is of course true. Imagine a Vivek Ramaswamy in our country.
To a government office in India, you will be confused because you will be talking with really stupid people. Because unfortunately, India
and those government office people, when we have discussed this as libertarians, some of us are, those fuckers will not even admit that they're stupid. The first thing they say is, do you know what a tough exam I gave? Do you know I passed WBCS? Do you know I passed UPSC? Do you? And if you criticize the children of these people, they will say, do you know what a tough exam my father gave? Do you know what a tough exam I am preparing for? And these exams, the mother load of bullshit general knowledge. How many strands of hair did Rabindranath Tagore have in his beard? You know that? Okay, now you are going to be a great bank manager or a great administrator or IAS officer. You are just taught. You are just tested. How much of bullshit information can you retain?
Has this massive deficit of leadership today. The best people have gone, and the Indian kind of democracy elevates the true psychopaths, corrupt people to positions of power. The world is so well connected today. You can go to Narendra Modi's Twitter account, or you can go to, any of the things that he participates in. All you see is 2 or 3 things. One is that there's this anti-Muslim propaganda. There is a Hindu religiosity that he participates in.
Again, this is fake news. There is no anti-Muslim propaganda coming from any government Twitter handle, okay?
Every day celebrating something in a temple. Now, how does the leader of a 1.4 billion people get time to devote hours in a temple every day.
Because he's not doing it every day, because this is fake news.
And then, they keep offering free stuff to people.
Who doesn't? USA doesn't. Or China doesn't. Who doesn't offer free stuff?
100 million Indians get free grains from the government. 65% or more of Indians live on less than $3.9 per capita.
Yes, a lot of this is because his favorite Prime Minister Nehru set to motion a lot of economic policies. His main chief economic advisor, P.C. Mahalanobis, who created these systems, because of which even today we are having to give 800 million people free food.
On PPP basis, which means that they live on less than $2.50 per capita per day, 65% of the population. Now, if you look at 800 million people, that is equivalent to the population of all of the Western countries put together. That is like about 30 countries in Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand. If you add up all the population, that comes to around 800 million. That many Indians get free food. Now, these people are hungry, basically. They are constantly hungry. There is an increase.
Yeah, and that is the unfortunate improvement that we have to appreciate now. That up until now, these people were dying of starvation. Now they are just hungry, but alive.
Of beggars that I have seen over the last 5 to 7 years in the country. So Indian economy is actually worsening. And here is the problem. While you say that the best leaders have left India, also, even the tradesmen have left India.
True.
So, if you go to, let's say, Dubai...
This is a very, very fair point. Best tradesmen, best craftsmen, plumbers, vagara, they have left for Dubai, Saudi Arabia. Now, the problem is even interstate brain drain is a real thing, right? Whether it's in IT sector, etc. But even in terms of tradesmen, best tradesmen have left West Bengal for Mumbai, Gujarat, Delhi, etc. Okay. In my locality, I can't fucking get one plumber to fix one flush of the commode. He fixes it every 3 to 4 months. I need to call him back again. No one knows how to do any fucking job properly in West Bengal in terms of tradesmen and craftsmen, etc. Baki ka to chhodi do, baki ka to sabko pata hai.
Or Abu Dhabi or Muscat, what you will see is that Indian plumbers and Indian electricians work in those places. Why? Because now, because of ease of leaving the country, they have left India. There's a huge deficit of tradesmen in the country, which means that if I want a plumber in India, I will struggle to find one. And Indian work ethic is extremely, extremely bad. And this is the story you hear from the Korean and the Chinese companies who have set up their manufacturing plants in India. There is a problem with work ethics. There's a huge defect rate.
Yes, and this is also almost true. I don't know about how true it is in terms of every craftsman or every field in India, but even in terms of people in Swiggy, etc., urban clap, those things. Okay, that I noticed that these people were preparing for some government job, or they thought they will spend their lives being some holding some political post, or just doing the local political party, or being the gunda for political party. All of them have suddenly woken up to the fact that they will actually have to earn their living honestly by doing actual quality work in return for money, because the market is now forcing them. Capitalism is kind of here even in West Bengal. They are having to work in Swiggy. They are having to coordinate with people. They have to keep their mouth in control. They have to keep their ego in control. They have to be well behaved. All of this is a gigantic shock to their psyche, to their system, to their worldview, to their way of thinking, everything. And for that, there is, I think, sort of a learning curve that's going on, which is why he is saying that this point that even foreign manufacturers are having troubles with Indian workers. It's not surprising, because all this is really new to Indians. So it will take one generation at least. So I think this is more or less a fair point. Let's see what Abhinag is saying. I was really disappointed to see AIM misbehaved with Sri Iyer on P. Guru's channel. You were right that he is basically emotional, Westophile and ego-driven. Will take Ankit Sharma more seriously now. See, I saw that interview. Sri Iyer did not lose his temper. Abhijit Iyer Mitra lost his temper, but was making a very specific point, which Sri Iyer was not understanding. Okay, so there's a problem on both sides here. Sri Iyer was being polite, but he was not getting the point. Abhijit Iyer Mitra was making a very fair point, but was losing his fucking temper and quit the show as a result. He was saying, Abhijit Iyer Mitra was saying, I am not talking about all Brahmins. But he was not going to make it as clearly as I'm saying it right now. Okay. He's not going to say that because he's, after all, pissed off with these Brahmins for obfuscating from the blame. But he's saying that I am saying that I'm using that word for only those Brahmins, only for you, if you say that there was no blame for you to share. If you do admit that there was in fact blame for your ancestors to share, or even today, then I am not saying that to you. That ये चीज श्री अय्यर के दिमाग में भी नहीं घुस रहा था. But the problem is that the counter argument from a lot of people, from Brahmins mainly, will be that it was never just Brahmins doing those bad behaviors. It has always been every varna, every jati behaving badly towards their lower, towards the jati or varna lower than them. That is 100% correct. Because two examples, of course, Ambedkar, Savarkar wrote to Ambedkar saying that you are Mahar, even Mahars oppress your the jatis lower than them. Why are you talking about only Brahmins? Then that incident I was talking about a few days back in our live stream, that the 1981 conversions in Tamil Nadu, okay, 180 Dalit families convert to Islam in one day. 220 families had signed up, but 40 later decided that no, we are going to stay in the Hindu fold. So they converted to Islam because they were not being allowed to enter the temples, etc. And then VHP uses this as a starting point for rejuvenating the Ram Janmabhoomi Andolan. He makes 200 temples for Dalits to enter and says that fuck casteism, etc. Okay. But the people who were preventing those Dalits from entering the temples in Tamil Nadu were not Brahmins. They were OBCs. So it's not like the bad behavior was coming only from Brahmins. Never was the bad behavior coming only from Brahmins. I will say that as a staunch anti-birth-based casteism guy. The point that AIM is making, that you have to share the blame. You have to admit that there was bad behavior in the first place. If you say that no, there were so many good Brahmins, that is not the point. Yes, there were good Brahmins. Even today there are bad Brahmins, there are good Brahmins today. But you have to admit there are bad Brahmins in the first place. And the second point is that the scriptural basis, the scriptural backing, okay, the divine assignment of this upper jati or upper varna behaving badly towards the lower jati and lower varna, that was coming from Brahmins because they were the educated class in scriptures. That was not coming from Kshatriyas or Vaishyas. They were not saying that, see, this Shastra says that. Okay, that was coming from Brahmins. So there, Abhijit Mitra is assigning the extra blame for Brahmins, which Sri Iyer was not understanding, that Abhijit Mitra is not saying those things to Sri Iyer specifically. He's saying to those people who do say that no, हमने तो कुछ गलत नहीं किया है. And ये हमने तो कुछ गलत नहीं किया है का एक अजीब cluster fuck है. A lot of these people say that हमने कुछ गलत नहीं किया है. But they also say that if at all those things happened, that was also according to Shastra. Then they say that no, casteism was, or the word caste came from British. But again, they will say that no, actually British, even if British created it, we are fine with it. So there's huge confusion going on in that section. AIM didn't say the other castes shared the blame though, right? Yeah, in today's context he didn't say. But otherwise he knows it, we know. He has said it in other contexts.
In the Indian processing system, even though machines have come from either the West or from China, they are exactly the same setups that they have in China, but the productivity is lower and the quality is much worse.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of information. On the other side, there's critics that are saying that the Modi government is made India most united ever on history, using Hindutva or Hindu nationalism. And the groups, they hate each other and anti-Muslim and stuff. They want to evacuate or basically pushing them to Myanmar and other places. But they claim doing this, possibly some anti-human rights thing, is making India united again. It's a preparation stage to be ready to do something big, such as being the leader in the global south, which Narendra Modi and Mr. Jaishankar claimed during this Palestine and Israel crisis, that India is willing to help and India is willing to lead. So on the political side, do you see India is making or playing a bigger role in the world, or going to lead for the global south to play a big role?
Modi has certainly united people. Now, the problem, Zephyr, is that you must get united because you have common values, or you want to work together, which means that you organize yourself in a harmonious relationship to into a win-win relationship. When
He just defined Hindutva, okay? He says that these are the characteristics of a truly united country, which according to us would be that yes, Hindutva is doing that. He then goes to say that Hindutva doesn't do that.
you unite everyone to hate another person, that is a very fake unity, because
No.
it will fall away.
Now, let's say China and USA are his models. So, how does China unite? Okay, he is talking to a guy whose country is sending Muslims to concentration camps, not for torture, I guess, or for there are rumors of organ harvesting, but re-education camps, some camps or the other. Okay, he's talking to a person from that country and saying that no, India is worse. Secondly, any unity of a country, of a big country, happens because of grand narratives. The China's grand narrative was communism. Isn't communism about hating anyone? What is he talking about? And USA's grand narrative all this while has been about hating communists up until the 90s at least. After that, when that grand narrative failed, then they overfunded the liberal arts as well. Then that's when their unity went to hell. Their unity was going to hell even in the 60s because of the Vietnam War. Reagan saved it to a large extent because of his coming up with his positive vision for the country, freedom, etc. But all unity is absolutely predicated on diagnosing who is the out group and who is the in group. We are an in-group of people who believe in freedom and democracy, etc. These are the savages who don't believe in freedom and democracy. That is the way even USA has worked. That is the way any national unity works. This is the problem, that he is an anarcho-capitalist, he's a libertarian, but now he's delving into things which he doesn't even believe in. He doesn't even want an united country, okay? He does not give a shit if any country is united or not. I'm not saying this is as a criticism, okay? This is the libertarian point of view. So now he's just going out of his lane and screwing things up.
The moment the object of hate goes away, and that hate, hate has been developed among Hindus against Muslims. And I'm not saying Muslims are innocent in that country. They are the other side of the same coin. But, they hate each other. And as a result, they are able to unite in certain forums. But they are atomized people, which means that everyone is trying to scam everyone else. Everyone is trying to cheat.
Okay. He said everyone is an atomized person. That was kind of true, but that was what his enlightenment era individualism taught us. But the rant that he goes on to say next after that is the thing we are going to critique now.
People, which means that everyone is trying to scam everyone else. Everyone is trying to cheat everyone else. And as I say, Zafar, an Indian organization of two people has one person too many. They can't work together. They constantly fight. They constantly backstab each other. So firstly, this unity is a fake unity. And they, of course, unite.
Okay. This will have to be answered by people who are directly involved in business or who have family members involved in business, guys. Because I don't know anyone in business. So all I see is that there are so many big, great Indian companies, etc. So they can't obviously work with this kind of backstabbing. But even if he's talking about the mid-level companies, how much of this do you think is true? Is this going on in every level of Indian companies, that everyone is trying to backstab and that's it. Fuck the company in the end as a result? How much do you think he's right here?
Themselves hating the neighbors as well. India is among the most closed country on the planet. It has.
Which country does not hate its neighbor? Maybe European Union countries, because that history is a little weird.
Hating the neighbors as well. India is among the most closed country on the planet. It has closed borders with all the neighboring countries, basically.
Who doesn't have closed borders with their countries? An open border is not a border, to quote the great Vivek Ramaswamy. But he's forgetting that the neighbors also hate India. He's not making that point here. He makes the point elsewhere that he actually hates the entire Indian subcontinent. That is why he's coming up with a bullshit, basically a wrong argument here.
Except for a couple of roads for transportation purposes open. So, this is not what makes India a country prosperous or on a path of growth. As I said, Indians don't have the skills. So what are they going to do? 800, a billion people, or probably 1.2 to 1.3 billion people, are fit for nothing except agricultural purposes and to act as security guards.
This is of course kind of true, but of course now it's going to improve now because of Narendra Modi's freebies. That's all the defense I have for this point.
Maybe, and they don't do the job of security
True.
guard either.
True.
If you go to an airport in India,
in India security guards either they are absolutely old, एक थप्पड़ मारोगे सिक्योरिटी वहां पे चला जाएगा, या फिर इतना बड़ा पेट है, क्या सिक्योरिटी गार्ड बनेगा वो.
and a lot of people go pass through airports in the world. You usually get your boarding pass checked once or twice. In India, if you go through any airports, they check your boarding pass and passport 5 or 6 times because they can't trust even the security guards to do their job properly. So that is how dysfunctional the country is.
Is that something to do with the caste system or just a plain distrust among each other?
Caste system is an outcome of this thing because if two Indians are together, one of them is going to act superior and one of them is going to act inferior. The person who is going to act inferior is going to address the other person as sir.
Okay, M. Shastri, I'm not getting time to reply to all of your comments, but I am reading those comments, okay? And yes, for this one, I paused to say that yes, you are right. But remember one thing, Indian libertarians are very bad in history. They know nothing about Indian history or world history pretty much, okay? They read maybe one biography or autobiography of some great libertarian economist thinker once in a while. But the fact that you're mentioning, yes, even if they know that history, they won't remember it while thinking about economics. When it comes to economics or macroeconomics or an economy in general of a country, all of a sudden they behave like this is when the country was suddenly born and now this country is now magically good or magically bad. That is how libertarians think.
Sir all the time, and that is disgusting when Indians use sir or madam 3 times in a sentence. So there's this always a hierarchical difference between any two Indians in any arena. The caste system is just one symptom of it. There's no equality.
This is actually a great defense of the caste system. That see, India is not bad because of the caste system. The caste system is there because India is bad, and the Hindus are bad in general. This race is bad
in that country. And no one wants the other person to succeed. They want themselves to win everything. So win-win relationship is not
that is competition, bro.
What they like to do. They always want win-lose relationship. Zafir, this is something that we could have worked on. The problem is the leadership. The Indian leadership over the last 75 years has continued to worsen. We had Jawaharlal Nehru, who was among the best prime ministers of the country. And then you can almost see a trend of quality of prime ministers going down. And
fair enough. About every prime minister, you can say some good things and some bad things. Maybe Rajiv Gandhi, I don't think there's any good things to say about him. But for Nehru, you can say that, yeah, he had a tough job, etc. But the point is, the very specific problems he pointed out about Indian economy that has been going on for all these years, they were set into motion because of actively, deliberately by Jawaharlal Nehru. They were not sheer happenstance. They did not happen because of magic. Those things did not happen because Indians are lazy or corrupt. Those happened because of Jawaharlal Nehru's Fabian socialism. Because Jawaharlal Nehru gave the reins to P.C. Maulanobish. For those specific reasons, this happened.
Down, and now we have a prime minister who, I don't even know what words to use for him. He does not understand the country. He does not, he is a demagogue who is trying to win elections based on Hindutva, on the basis of offering free stuff to people and creating hate.
Guys, okay, again, he's being unfair and fake news, basically. Every election in America is based on whether non-white people are oppressed or not, or whether there's freedom and democracy or not. But along with that, there is an announcement of freebies. Okay, no one has the balls to decrease freebies in any way. There might be some tax deductions. Republicans will decrease taxes a little. Democrats will increase taxes a little. But if even Americans wanted to fix their country today, they would have to get rid of their minimum wage laws, which they won't. And therefore, we can argue pretty well that no American politician today is intelligent enough, like he would say, or is just not honest enough to fix their own country. Okay? So that's the same thing going on here as well. They are going to go on with their freebies. a freebie, and you can say that minimum wage laws are a freebie in a way, because you are paying a person unfairly high and destroying your country and your economy and your employment as a result. Because, and how do I know that? Know that because you are filling up the country with illegal immigrants to replace the people who you would have to pay legally a very high wage, which you yourself set, because of course you wanted to get elected. And he is against democracy, but he does not bring that up now. He should have said that these problems are happening in India because India is a democracy, and these problems happen elsewhere as well, where there is democracy. These problems don't happen in China because there is no democracy. But now he's making it out to be like, well, these are distinctly, specifically Indian problems, which is not the case. M. Shastri saying, my aunt in DC used to be same way as Jayant Bhandari until she got fired from her cushy US government job for racism against Indians and blacks. Lol, let me check some comments. Nehru, good PM, yes. Nina is saying she implemented the worst of socialism much more than Nehru. Yes. And yes, Nina, I was talking about the 71 word only. That too with Stalin's help.
Within Indians against other people. But, this is not what creates productivity in a society. This does
Yeah. Modi doesn't understand the country. That is the most epic quote I have ever heard in my life.
Not create a harmonious society.
Hatred never easily goes away. And for our audience, for information...
This is a Chinese guy saying, who has concentration camps for re-education camps for Muslims in his country. What is going on here? Arey bhai, humko kya nillaj banna padega itna in logo ke jaisa?
India has one of the most populous Muslim population throughout the world. Considering the population of India right now, it's almost equal to, I believe, Indonesia, right? Possibly Indonesia has more Muslims than India, but it's a huge population. So government policy aiming or encouraging discrimination on Muslim is insane considering...
Smartly, one NRI and one Chinese guy dissing India for behaving badly towards Muslim, while not saying nothing about China. What the fuck is going on?
A huge population, but no judgment here, but I'm not commenting on policy right now, but
yes,
just for information. When you're mentioning harmony, I've been watching several videos like several years ago. You mentioned harmony in other videos saying Chinese are willing to see a prosperous country and peace country. We've been neighboring for thousands of years and we have a very close, tight relationships before. Pretty much harks back to our earlier symphonies in Tang Dynasty when the famous pilgrim, Xuanzang, we call it, he carried all the scriptures from India to China, and I visited...
Every time I hear Huensang's name, I hear a different pronunciation and different spelling. He's talking about Huensang, okay?
The pagoda in Xi'an this year. I see all the people going around taking selfies, and I think how people view India at that time. At that time, I believe India...
Guys, those who follow Ankit Shah know what he just said, right? He's saying that all of a sudden there's an interest in the pagodas, people taking selfies, whereas Chinese government up until few years back was going around destroying mosques, temples, the churches, etc. Okay, because they were specifically against religion as a whole. I wonder why. I wonder why communists decided that they need to propagate a culture of hatred. Nino is saying these Chinese do not actually care about those Uyghur camps. They think they are different race from them, so need different treatment. Yes, I have asked them. Yeah, that is fair, but then why talk to India about it? China also has a Han supremacy problem. Yeah.
This signifies advanced technology, understanding of the world, philosophies, and wisdom. How India and China's relationship being drove to this position? How do you think, what drove us here that make us seem strangers to each other? I barely see Chinese learning Hindi right now, and I barely see Indian people learning Chinese right now.
Yeah, it's a very sad thing, Zafir. Again, there's a lot of hate being generated for Chinese within the country. The mainstream...
Because they are fucking with our border. It's not magically. It's not for no reason.
Media, constantly does things and tells people things which are not just complete lies. They come out of their windows and throw away Chinese-made televisions to show that they want to boycott China.
Yes, that was a symbolic move.
Chinese products while they record everything on Chinese-made mobile phones. So it's just a crazy situation in the country. There wasn't really all that much of contact between India and China for a long time. What you are talking about is a contact that happened a couple of thousand years back. In recent times, I don't see much contact between the two countries. They are two very different people. What you see is a constant deterioration of relationship between the two countries. for the last 75 years,
Yeah.
and mostly because of useless land between the two countries. I'm no expert on border issues, so I don't know where the border actually should be. Neither are you. And in fact, a lot of that land was no man's land, basically, because that is unproductive land.
ये अनप्रोडक्टिव लैंड का चुतियापना इस 2024 में मुझसे बर्दाश्त नहीं होता है. I will get into this point very specifically because there are a lot of people on every side of the political spectrum making this point from time to time, okay? A lot of my own viewers also believe in this. This is what needs to be debunked. Libertarians, leftists, right-wingers, devout Hindu Trinamool supporters, Congressis, etc. Everyone, even Hindutva folk, say that we don't need some portions of land, some portions of controversial land, whether with China or with Pakistan, let's say POK, etc., because that land is unproductive or useless or barren. Okay. पहली बात तो ये है कि वो अगर हमारा है तो है भोसड़ी के. सेकेंडली, कोई भी लैंड आज के दिन में तुम नहीं बोल सकते हो कि वो अनप्रोडक्टिव है आफ्टर सीइंग व्हाट द फक इजराइल एंड यूएई आर डूइंग इन फ्रंट ऑफ योर आइज इन एन एंटायर कंट्री दैट्स अनप्रोडक्टिव लैंड. ओके, कोई गुज्जू अग्रवाल को भेज दो वहाँ पे, दिखा देगा, गाड़ में डाल देगा क्या अनप्रोडक्टिव लैंड है और क्या यूजलेस लैंड है. ठीक है, और कुछ नहीं हुआ. अगर सिक्योरिटी अपैरेटस नहीं बिठा पाए, अगर टूरिज्म नहीं हुआ, फिर भी वहाँ पे एडवेंचर स्पोर्ट्स कर लेंगे, मोटर स्पोर्ट्स करेंगे, डर्ट बाइक रेस होगा वहाँ पे. अनप्रोडक्टिव लैंड नाम का कोई चीज़ नहीं होता है रियल लाइफ में.
No one really probably occupied some of those areas. But Indians have a habit of fixating on one issue and canceling everything else. So if there's a problem with Pakistan, they stop doing business with Pakistan.
Pakistan stopped doing business with us. We didn't stop doing business with them.
Trains has stopped running, buses has stopped running, cricket matches has stopped between the two countries. So if one thing is not working well, they stop everything else. There are border problems between every country actually on the planet.
Yes.
But they say, hey, let's discuss border problems separately.
Yes, let's discuss, because discussions have gotten so much fruits. For 75 years, we had a cottage industry of peace talks. We will go to different places in the world and have a party. Politicians will hire hookers. IAS officers will sleep with their interns, and we will go on with the peace talks while Pakistan keeps bombing us. That's the discussion we need to keep having, because we need to solve problems with Pakistan.
But let's continue to encourage people-to-people contact, open up trade between.
Giridharan, actually, I'm giving a lot of importance to this guy because his popularity is increasing. And I had been wondering, why are libertarians so hell-bent against BJP? Why won't they see that BJP is at least trying to change the narrative now? Because you see that all the mainstream politicians, biggest, even babus, like Amitabh Kant, etc., all of these people, when they're coming to different podcasts, etc., they are saying that it's such a great thing that the next generation does not see only government jobs as an aspirational model. They are trying to change the narrative from the top. They are saying that, yes, don't just look for government jobs. ये नैरेटिव चेंज अगर गवर्नमेंट खुद इनकरेज कर रहा है चेंज होना, तो वाई शुडंट वी अप्रिशिएट दैट? एंड देन वाई आर लिबर्टेरियंस प्रिटेंडिंग लाइक ऑल ऑफ अ सडन इंडिया टुडे इज अ बैड कंट्री, ऑल ऑफ अ सडन बीजेपी हैज फॉलन आउट ऑफ द स्काई एंड इज स्टार्टिंग टू गिव आउट फ्रीबीज. सो आई वाज वंडरिंग इट फॉर मंथ्स नाउ दैट व्हाट्स द सोर्स ऑफ सो मच हेट्रेड. All that hatred for BJP or the Indian government in general now, or the Indian society, or Indian history, Indian culture, etc., all of that from libertarians is coming from listening to this fucking guy. That is why I'm countering this guy.
Between the two countries. So, but India, the problem is that Indian politicians are very insecure people.
Fair enough.
Primarily because they are not very smart people.
Which politician in the world is not secure, not insecure? Are?
They get to their positions because they are not meritocratic, because they are psychopathic, because of only two reasons. One is Hindutva and one is the offer of free monies. You look at any election happening in India, they are run on two things: free money and Hindutva. There's nothing else happening in the country during election time. So
yes, even in American politics, it's race and free money.
No, you have no mindset and no motivation to work towards public policy, to think about bigger things to do with the society. And that goes...
That never happens with any country in the mainstream society. That happens with only some intellectuals.
Back to your earlier question, that because there is no thinking about improving law and order, improving public policy, so there's no vision for the future. And let me finally say this thing. I
बबल अरे अच्छा प्रश्न किया है तुमने, मगर इसका आंसर मेरे पास है नहीं. ये बहुत अजीब चुतियापा है इन लोगों का. Libertarians, he is also in favor of CCP. He says that CCP is not perfect, but it's kind of the best option right now. So he probably thinks that at least wo Nehru invested so much in higher education. That's why we had these IITs. That's why at least in terms of education the country did good. Therefore he's a libertarian hero out of the blue. But of course not the best option. Now Ninar is asking that Dada, do you support Megaswamy for president and VP? Are you asking me as an Indian, or are you asking me objectively for the good of America or something? Okay. So there, of course, the answers will be different. But as an Indian, I want America to have a weak president and weak VP if possible. And in terms of just free promotion for Hindu and Hinduism, Indian culture, etc. In those terms, of course, Ramaswamy being VP is great. But the problem is, I don't think Ramaswamy will be picked as VP unless Trump gives in to the sea of demand for Ramaswamy as VP, because entire of Trump's base, they want Ramaswamy as their VP. A lot of them had shifted to supporting Ramaswamy as president in the first place. Now their second best option is to have Ramaswamy as VP. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think a lot of pro-Israeli voices are very pissed off with Ramaswamy, and they really want Nikki Haley to be the VP, because Nikki Haley is so pro-war. She openly says she wants to bomb Iran if she becomes the president. What? Nikki Haley is the worst human being in USA after maybe 1 or 2, 3 guys, but probably the worst non-Muslim in USA. And what insane things she said, man. What a shameful person. But I think she will be VP. I think Trump is taking a lot of donations from these people who want Nikki Haley to be the VP. So, but in the end, it's going to be a de-dollarized world, and the currency is going to be pegged. Ramaswamy was in favor of those things. So let's see, it might be Nikki or Ron DeSantis. I don't think it's going to be Ron DeSantis anymore. And with Nikki, they get to play we gave a woman of place, a person of color. You all also had a woman of color. We also have a woman of color. Those cards are going to be played. And a lot of mainstream Democrats who don't follow politics that deeply, they are also pretty much in favor of Nikki Haley, interestingly, okay? And they are even saying that Nikki Haley is doing badly because she's a woman, okay? So all that shows that Nikki Haley might become VP. And Trump has been asked point blank that will you take Ramaswamy as your VP up until a few days back. He has kind of deviated from the argument, but when asked that whether even his campaign staff, whether Nikki Haley will be picked as VP, they have kind of laughed and smiled and sort of a wink. So it might be Tucker Carlson because of some weird reason, or if because he is not that harmless when it comes to the donors. Donors might be equally pissed with Tucker as well, but they are not sure if Tucker will be that effective in communicating these ideas to Trump or the media in general. But Vivek is going to be even effective in communicating the anti-war agenda. But Nikki would be the best choice as VP for all the donors, and they are not even going to support Democrats. Okay, people who want war, they will prefer a Trump-Nikki Haley ticket.
I have yet to meet a public servant, a government person, who does not ask for a bribe. Earlier, when I was working in India 20 years back, the bribe was something like 10 to 15 or 20% of the revenue. Today, they openly ask for bribes, and openly, without any fear, from the top politician to the bottom bureaucrat, everyone consistently asks for bribes. Nothing in that country happens without bribes. If I have to bribe a local bureaucrat, I can go to a senior. Senior will only ask for more bribe if I go to report to him. If I go all the way to the chief minister, he will ask for more bribes. If I go to the court will ask for bribes. So,
I don't know about courts asking for bribes. Do you all know anything about this? But in general, directionally speaking, this is true. Of course, we know. And anyone who has studied in a government college, oh my God, hasn't your life been turned to absolute fucking hell because of the accountants in the colleges? But my question to you guys is that How many of you all still have some dealings with government offices for different work purposes or business purposes? How much of this bribery is still a thing? I'm not sure about that. It has been true for all these years that I know, but with so many things being online, etc., how much of this is still a problem? Can you all tell me? Honeyman is saying, Dada, why don't you open a Discord channel? The Hindutva wing can sharpen their arguments. I don't do that because there are a lot of people with too much boiling blood who might end up discussing a lot of violence in those Telegram groups or WhatsApp groups, etc., or Discord channel, and there might be some Trinamool infiltrator who will probably screw my life because of the discussions going on in those groups.
There's no solution to the problem. And as a result, what you come to an easy conclusion, and this is an easy conclusion, there's no intelligence behind it. If you understand how India works, you know that forget about India continuing to improve. India will actually continue to worsen into the future. And India has been stagnant for the last 5 to 7 years, despite their so-called superficial GDP growth.
I heard people were protesting for implementation of a zero rupee note, right, to fight bureaucracy and bribery. Do they really ask bribery from foreigners?
Everyone has to pay bribes. Without bribes, nothing happens. They don't ask you for bribes, then your work will not get done. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Okay. They'll say, functionally, this functions, or wait for a week or stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and you will wait forever. Of course, you might, as a foreigner, get a train ticket more easily because you are just more visible. But if you really start doing business in India, you still have to pay them bribes, and bribes is an inherent part of the Indian culture.
So how do people actually know how much?
How is bribes an inherent part of the Indian culture? See, now when you need to bring out scriptures, all the while in the mainstream, when we talk about scriptures, it's either to say, see, casteism is so bad, or it is to prove that no, there was no real casteism, or birth-based casteism is not recommended. अरे भाई caste के अलावा कोई topic discuss करो scripture में. तो this argument that because a lot of people are so frustrated with the Indian society, Indian bureaucracy, etc., that they are looking for something or someone to blame, right? What is the mysterious thing which is leading to India's bureaucracy, every government employee being such a fucking asshole and a bribe taker and sucking at their job so much? Okay, how is that happening? What might be the reason? It might be because as a race we are corrupt, because that is what a lot of Indians and NRIs say, that we Indians are so corrupt. अरे भाई, we Indians are so corrupt, वो बाहर जाके विवेक रामास्वामी कैसे बन जा रहा है? So, who's the next person to blame? The next thing to be blamed might be our scriptures, that in some way or the other, the scriptures may have shaped or molded our minds in such a way that we have become a corrupt society. There, luckily, I have read primary sources. I don't give a shit about quotes here and there. I don't give a shit if any random quote says that yes, do birth-based casteism, or if any random quote says that no, don't do birth-based casteism. It's best to learn as much as possible from primary source and the entirety of a text. Now, if you go into any entirety of a Hindu text, they will tell you that the entire concept of a society, every relation, whether it's between two husband and wives, an employer and employee, king and his subjects, it's duty, 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 duty. It starts with duty, it ends with duty, okay? Three dharm, Raj dharm, this dharm, that dharm. It's all about duties. In such a duty-bound society, there was never any recommendation that go be a fucking asshole and a corrupt person. That has absolutely happened because of 1,000 distortions that have happened in the society, where you could not get by in your life in an honest manner. Okay, because of socialism, PC Maulana Bishop's policies, Nehru, British government, Mughals, or in terms of administrations, Mughals were the most uneducated class. They had come from a place where there was nothing to administer. They did not know the concept of having a treasury they had no concept of saving up food grains. Before the Mughals, there were no famines, at least not man-made famines. Okay, कि ऐसे ही सब खा लिया और अचानक famine हो गया. Those things did not happen. In 300 BC, when Arthashastra is being written, there are pages after pages of details of how to maintain your treasure, your kosher. Okay, though that kind of a society does not create famines, that's not a society that creates bribery and corruption. Corruption happens because of distortions and corruptions in the way things were run. and those were much later. But of course, we need to diagnose the problem that it is still here, and we need to change it by some grand narrative, and that grand narrative is Hindutva, according to me.
They gonna pay the bribe. Saying I'm a foreigner, I go to India and I want to buy a ticket. How much I should pay for each officer or policeman asking?
Yeah, Shomodi, very true. Bureaucracy is there to control instead to serve. Yes. Now, I don't think as a system it can be changed. This system need to be revamped. These people need to be fired, and this needs to be started from ground up. Because one thing I have noticed based on the limited reading I have done in my life is that when you create a system, let's say, to kill a dog, okay? Just because you then modify the system and ask it to save the dog, it does not do that. Even if it does not want to kill the dog deliberately, it still ends up killing the dog, okay? That is how these systems, structures, institutions function. That is how all systems, structures, institutions function, okay? For example, liberal arts academia, anthropology, sociology, these things were put into place to point out the fissures, to sow fissures in Indian society. That is why today, no wonder, even if they don't want casteism to increase, even if they want to solve the problem of casteism, it won't happen. They will keep on increasing the problem. In the same way, I don't think Indian bureaucracy can be fixed unless built up from the ground up. Hiring policy, exam policy, employment criteria, employment directives, everything needs a sea change. Without that, it can't be changed. Why? Because this system was not built to serve. It was built to control the masses for the British government. It was a colonial system in place, and it will always keep on being colonial. You can't change this system as it is. Systems don't change like that just because the people want to do a thing differently. The results, the reasons, the incentive structures, all remain same because it was designed to do one particular thing. It will keep on doing that one particular thing only.
For bribery.
Because you're a foreigner and because you're Chinese, you will pay more than an Indian, but you will pay less than an American. So the bribes depend on how much money they think that you might be able to give to them. But also, when you go to another officer in the country, he will always ask you how much bribe you paid to the other guy, because he wants to make sure what the current trend in bribes is, and if he needs to get a cut from that bribe, whether that bribe is coming to him or not.
Okay. It's almost like getting robbed in Boston, in Chicago. The local mafias would ask how much you get robbed last night.
See, in the beginning, I told you that this guy is going to be fairer than Jayant Bhandari. So he is pointing out that, that's like getting robbed in USA as well. Jayant Bhandari is not going to listen to it. He is going to say, no, ignore that and let's move on to criticizing India again.
I call Indian bureaucrats spineless robbers because they don't take the risk that a robber takes.
Fair enough.
A robber can get caught with by the police eventually or end up in the court. But a corrupt policeman in India takes zero risk because everyone in the system is corrupt. Every bureaucrat is going to help him because he's a part of the system in which corruption runs in the veins. You also remember that because bribe, connection, religiosity is the only thing that runs that country, you can get anything done. I can murder someone and get away with it by paying bribes. Everything runs on bribes. I can, if you want information from some very secret organization in India, all you have to do is supply women and get pay bribes, and you will get what you want. And again, whatever I have said, I want India to do well, and you want India to do well. You are peaceful only as long as your neighboring country is prosperous and peaceful. But you have to be aware of the problems of the country. Otherwise, you can't really know where you are starting from. And Indians don't even know where they are starting from because they think they are dominating the world. When, remember, the GDP per capita of India is $2,500 per capita. This is, this is similar to sub-Saharan level.
That is Salvatore Babones's point. If India's GDP per capita is like that of sub-Saharan Africa, why isn't India running like a sub-Saharan country? Yahi to prashan hai. Then you have to understand that India is actually a fucking fantastic country, fantastic society, because even with sub-Saharan GDP per capita, we are not a sub-Saharan GDP country, sub-Saharan level of a society.
GDP per capita.
Let alone the per capita thing, India still have a very huge total amount of national power and capital to play a big role in this chaos.
Yeah, bubble, etc. All of the people who are saying that he's stuck in the 90s, etc. The problem is, even I thought that he probably hasn't come back to India in many decades, so he doesn't know. But no, actually he has come back. He comes to India in some way or the other in terms of dealings, etc. He has some still relation with India. But even now he says that these things go on, okay? Because the next video we are going to check out is his sort of a monologue which went viral in China, which is why this guy got invited by this Chinese guy. There also he's going to say that I'm not saying that India is bad today because it used to be bad in the past. But then he goes on to say that those things are happening even now. So we are going to debunk those arguments as well.
World. How do you anticipate India playing a bigger role or playing a vital role in leading the global south or joining the so-called modernized Western part?
India is a non-entity. No one cares about India. People pay lip service to India. I go to investment conferences and, there are speeches on Vietnam, there are speeches on Cambodia, there are speeches on Bangladesh. But then at the closing panel, there's some small talk about how India is an emerging country. No one really...
He goes to some bad business conferences maybe. But yes, of course, Vietnam, Cambodia are also lucrative markets, but so is India. Because it's not like their mechanics, their laborers are all of a sudden as educated and as good at their job as first world countries. They have pretty much the same problems because they are not that thriving of a democracy. Therefore, the government might hammer a lot of things into those laborers to do a lot of things for the foreign manufacturers. That might be true. Any Western society with our GDP per capita would have been a basket case. Very true. One thing I wanted to respond to here is that, okay, Drew Hicks is saying, read about bureaucracy reform. It will probably be imposed in after 2024 election. If you're using the word imposed, I'm very optimistic. I don't think it will be imposed because when you are saying something will be imposed, it means that something drastic is going to happen. I don't think something drastic is going to happen. But if at all something drastic is about to happen, only that can fix the bureaucracy. Without drastic, shocking changes, this system can't be fixed.
Really cares about India. People don't really invest in that country. Politically, it's an irrelevant country. India applied to join APEC in 1991. They don't want India to be a part of that. India is a
why would we need that?
Chaos, and the only thing India will export to the world over the next decade or two will be chaos, because there will be a lot of refugees entering the West from India.
For me,
refugees from India, where did this come from?
On a Chinese view perspective, I feel India may not be playing a critical or dominating role on this international affairs. But in fact, I feel India is very qualified to play a, let's say, critical minority role in these affairs, saying maybe Chinese and American relationships, India is not going to play a dominating role, but to get inside and make stuff chaotic or leaning to one or other is enough to, shake the equilibrium.
Jaffer, I was recently reading the autobiography of Lee Kuan Yew. Again, a dot on the planet.
the libertarian god, Lee Kuan Yew, who was a socialist, who then became a capitalist dictator because he was a true patriot. And again, see, we are all playing to a rules, okay, to a set of rules. Now, if someone starts playing the rule and then throws away the rules of the game and says that, no, now I make up my own rules and therefore I will win. That is a fair argument, but India is not getting rid of its democracy anytime soon. It's a flawed democracy, but it's still very, very, very much a democracy. It has its benefits, even if very few in number, but it has its disadvantages. But you can't bring Lee Kuan Yew to this question here, because he became a dictator who said that I don't have to win elections. I will just force you to be successful. तू successful नहीं होके कहाँ जाएगा भोसरी के? I will force you to live with your neighbor whom you hate. I won't allow ghettoization. And therefore, in 1961, he says, Kolkata, I want to make Singapore like Kolkata. When Atal Bihari Vajpayee goes to Singapore, decades later, he says, wow, Singapore has become such a great country. It used to be as bad as Kolkata. So, bringing up Lee Kuan Yew into this conversation does nothing for the conversation or for India in general.
M.
Shastri, our democracy is flawed because it does not run without street violence. It cannot operate without street violence and political parties, gundas.
and you read this autobiography and you realize how much
This video is pretty recent, M. Shastri, and the one which we are going to see after this, that is 5 months old, which went viral. Then he got called to do this video. Just because we have someone from the West disapproved doesn't make our democracy flawed. No, yeah, I'm saying our democracy is flawed because of the dependence on violence.
influence that dot on the planet, Lee Kuan Yew, had on world affairs. He changed Singapore from a
No, USA has had street violence only after 2016. Because of politics, because of elections, street violence hoga, that was not a thing in USA. Okay. Once it happened when George Bush won against Al Gore in basically a fake election, and that too only in the Florida constituency. And after 2016, when everyone lost their minds because of Trump. Otherwise, that's not a common thing. That's a very Indian thing. Or, I mean, Indian subcontinent, etc. You are talking about West Bengal democracy, rest of India doesn't have that much violence. Okay, maybe now. But you see, most politicians have become senior politicians in their party after being a college level politician who used to get into political fights in their college campuses all the time. Right.
third world country to a first world country, which is now the richest country on the planet. It has changed the economies of Indonesia and Malaysia to a large extent. Neither of those countries would be where they are without Singapore. Singapore had a huge influence on Deng Xiaoping in China. They were talking with each other. There was an influence of because of this one small dot on the planet. So then you also realize, if you go back to what the discussions he was doing with Americans and with Margaret Thatcher, he had a huge impact on world affairs in 80s and 90s. A dot on the planet. Your influence on the world
because he decided after coming to power democratically, he decided fuck democracy. But okay, so you all are saying that outside West Bengal, this is not the case anymore. But if you are admitting that yes, up until 2000, it was dependent on street power, it is not now, then fair enough. Then you might be right. I don't go out of West Bengal all that much. So I might be talking about only in the West Bengal context. Yeah, that might be. You are being short-sighted and rosy-eyed about the West. No, that is true. That the huge dependency on street violence that we have in elections here, that has never been in the West until before 2016. But if you say that it has decreased now in the rest of the country, but it has not decreased in West Bengal, that might be true because I don't know about the street violence levels during elections outside West Bengal. Druix is saying, read my recent comment. Okay, instead of 1,000 governments will take 4,000 something. Instead of 1,000 government will take 4,000 something, and after 4 years performance will be evaluated. After 15 years, then after 25, after 4 years, 25% will remain. 75% will be thrown out. अच्छा है. चलो देखते हैं.
Dependent on how balanced, how rational, how solidly grounded you are, not on the basis of self-serving expediency.
I've been reading Mr. Jaishankar's book, The India Way, recommending foreigners to read at least Ramayana to understand Hindutva, or the way Indian act better. So he think in this genre lasting for at least 20-something years, that India live in the conflict possibly generated from US against China, India will be the winner. Just like how China got actually the
M. Shastri, the 70s and 90s USA street violence, that was happening for different reasons. Okay, there were race riots, etc. going on, but specifically for you going to your local voting booth and voting for a Democrat, if you are in a Republican region, you get beaten up for that. Those things are common in India, at least very common in West Bengal today. That was never common in USA, at least. That is what I'm saying. Even today, everything will be known by the booth officials of the political parties, that who is actually in the end voting for which party, and that is a big problem if you are a non-Trinamool voter in a Trinamool region. That was never a threat in USA. So the street violence was different, but street violence because of elections, that is a different thing, and that was not common in USA up until 2016. It's just a phase. That's why I'm calling you rosy-eyed. As police get stronger, violence will decrease. Kushal explained it pretty much. Police will not get stronger because they have so many ways to get into the police service because of 1,000 different kinds of quotas. He played great cricket when he was in school. He ran track, was an athlete when he was in college, or his father knew somebody. Oh my God, the SC/ST, the OBC quotas in West Bengal police. Do you know how much reservation there is for police? And then they are unfit. Police is a disastrous situation anyway. When Shastri, when was street violence because of elections common in USA? Like you are going to be afraid to go out and vote to the party of your choice just because you live in the region where the opposite party is in power. That's why the federal government in the US enacted Draconian Voting Rights Act to tackle street power and violence around the police station. Bring up some incidents, maybe.
Trophy in the US and Soviets conflict. How do you evaluate that statement?
Well, Jaishankar speaks very well. He has lived outside India for a long time. His children live in the United States, so they don't live in India. Okay, remember this thing. He is just a good packaging for Modi's government. He is probably a sophisticated looking person in Modi's government. Jaishankar provides a nice packaging because he speaks well, he's well dressed. Unlike virtually every other Indian politician, he can sit down and talk with virtually everyone. But that does not mean that the way he looks is a good reflection of India. In fact, he is just a packaging. He's the lipstick on the pig. The reality is that India and China will never have a good relationship because the border problem can never be solved, and it will be the top thing in the agenda for Indian politicians.
Well, I do believe that.
Indian politicians, what the fuck? Chinese politicians are not to be blamed for having a border problem with India. Only India is to be blamed.
Indians really believe, even fantasizing that India will be in China's place right now. Now, the US and the so-called Western modernized world will accept India as a whole?
The United States is favoring India right now is because they want to have access to Indian bases in case there's a war between the US and China. Apart from that, no one has any purpose.
Me as a Chinese, I want to see China and India go well with each other because we're neighboring for thousands of years. And even though we hate each other, the border is there. We're still neighboring each other. So since we're neighbors, why don't we get along each other good? Just like thousands of years ago. All right, we're running out of time right now. Thank you,
okay,
Mr.
This one is over, and I just want to respond to what Vaibhav said. Yeah, Vaibhav, that point is not even important, that his wife left Japan and is now living in India. That is not important because that point about Jaishankar's kids is not even significant, because when Jaishankar's kids were born, when they started studying in foreign countries, back then India was a hardcore socialist country and was a disaster. So it's not like now all of a sudden, since now things are on the move, things are getting better now Jaishankar will bring his kids back to India, who have basically grown up their entire lives in the West. All of a sudden they can't be asked to do that. So his kids are not even in question here, and that's the matter for any government official today, even from BJP. If they have their kids in the West, I won't blame them for it. I will blame them on a moral level, of course, that if you think you are doing a good job, why are your kids, if you have been in power, let's say, I would blame that more on Congress, that if you think you have done such a great job with your country, why are all your kids studying in the West, etc. But not BJP, because they have come to power only once in 98 and now in 2014. But today, if BJP people send their kids to study, if they are born after 2014, and then they send their kids out in the West, then I have a big problem with them. M. Shastri is saying political violence in polarized US at its worst in 1970s. Reuters. Okay, is this a paper? Then I will look it up. Dada, look at how USA compares January 6th insurrection at US Capitol. They are saying it's highest since 1970s. And you see that January 6th insurrection was a nothing. It was an absolute nothing, and they're saying it's such a big violence thing. That is why I'm saying that the violence doesn't compare. She's daughter lives in Canada. Okay, now the more important his monologue on India, which went viral in China. The economics of India. This one, and I had sent this to Ankit Shah as well, that, sir, what's your point? What would be your thoughts and arguments on this? He looked up, I think, these two videos a bit, and he laughed a lot with emojis. And he made just one point, because we are not going to have an entire discussion on this guy just in our Twitter inbox, right? So he said that if you have a printing machine, why do you even need to be corrupt? No one's poor. Everyone's being provided so much salaries needlessly. So that might be one reason for you to not be corrupt in the first place. Nina is saying you should follow Javier Milei. Absolutely amazing policies he is implementing in China, of course. In Argentina, yes, he is a libertarian. I wouldn't blame S. Jayashankar now, but I would certainly blame him if he's... Exactly. Dada, आपने question क्या पूछा JSD से? I asked him two questions. I asked him that when Walter Mignolo retracted or recanted his testimonial for the book India, that is Bharat, he made 2 points that when writing the testimonial, he did not know that J. Deepak is a conservative. And he did not know that J. Deepak is from the opposite political spectrum. And therefore, he basically cancelled his testimonial for the book. So, in light of this, how can we trust such a respected academic? How can he be so dishonest? How can we trust any academic after this? So, J. Deepak said that, yes, and I'm going to make public the entire email exchange between him and Walter T. Mignolo, and name all the NRI Hindus who were basically the people who pestered him into redacting that testimonial. And then I asked that before reading India, Bharat, Pakistan, his second book, I was under the impression, based on my history reading of my ISC board school, that Sri Aurobindo was some random revolutionary. He threw a bomb here, threw a bomb there, went to jail, became a sannyasi randomly. I did not know that he was such a significant force in the revolutionary, the extremist faction of the Congress or the freedom fighters, exactly like Bipin Chandra Pal, and often further effective and further extremist than those three people, even more than them. Okay, that I came to know only after reading India, Bharat, Pakistan. So I asked him that did you know that Aurobindo Ghosh's contributions were of this level, or did you find that out while researching for this book? He said that he had some ideas and talked to a lot of relevant people, but also mainly found out while researching for this book.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to this inaugural Calgary chapter of Capitalism and Morality. Thank you, Darcy Garreau and Clayton Reeder, for making this seminar in Calgary happen. India recently became the most populous country on the planet. It has today 1.4 billion people, which means that 1 out of every 5.5 people on the planet is an Indian. Canada brings in by far the most immigrants from India. As a share of total immigrants, India's continues to increase by every passing year. It is incumbent, therefore.
Okay, a lot of countries are worse than India, okay, African countries, etc., in terms of corruption, violence, quality of life, everything, right? Poverty, etc. I don't think even the most dishonest person in the world will disagree that a lot of countries are worse than India. India is not the worst country in the world. Why then are those people of those countries not emigrating to the West in the same numbers as India? Okay, there is a very important distinction to make here. If India is being touted as the worst country in the world because so many people are living in India, why are people in the worst of countries not leaving their countries and going to the West? Because, after all, India's education system is such that even after being such a bad country, those people are educated enough to get a job in Canada, which is not so in Africa. So, this leaving this brain drain is of course a big dhabba on India, but it is still a mark of something very distinct, that these people are qualified enough to study or do a master's, PhD, or get a job in the West. That is not nothing. it would be still preferable if this was not the case, but it's still not nothing. We are doing something right.
Upon you to understand the Indian culture and what is happening here. I'm going to start with certain statements and images and videos of Western bureaucrats, Western media, and Western corporations about their perception of what India is like. Or at least I want to show.
M. Shastri is making a very interesting point, actually, which is true in a very interesting way, that India is extremely competitive place compared to the West. And actually, in every field almost, this is very true. A lot of people don't get it. A lot of libertarians don't understand it. A lot of NRIs and people who have never been to India, a lot of Westerners don't understand it, that India is actually a very tough place to succeed, not just because of corruption, etc. Even if there is no corruption, actually the competition in India is very tougher because of so many people being involved in it, and because it's very sort of a chaotic situation in every field in general. There is no streamlined way of doing things in India in any field, except maybe academics and IAS, that you pass this exam, you get this job, your life is set. Except academia and IAS, etc., WBCS, etc., no field in India is going to be this streamlined, where you will just go according to your plan and have a successful life. It's not going to happen, bro. I can give you 2 examples. Let's say this is a common knowledge in India, that any doctor who has practiced in a government college for even like 1 or 2 years is probably more experienced than any doctor in the world. The amount of chaos he handles in a government hospital. Okay. Then in terms of music, okay, तो इंडिपेंडेंट म्यूजिक का तो सक्सेस छोड़ ही दो. अल्टीमेटली तुमको बॉलीवुड का कवर्स बजाना है बस शादियों में जाके या फिर कॉलेज में जाके, नहीं तो तुम्हारा कोई अर्निंग वर्निंग नहीं होगा. बट if you want to be successful in the music industry, in the film music industry, the path you have to take is so weird, so diverse for so many different people. I mean, even luck is not the only factor. There are so many factors that has to fall into place one after the other, that people will basically lose their patience. That kind of weird path towards success is not there in any other country. And I'm not saying that it's a great thing that we have to work so much harder to be in India, to work in this field. But remember, after all, this is, you could call this competition. After all, this is competition. And and these sorts of things are not exactly because of corruption every time, but it is tougher to succeed in India in a lot of fields. But on top of that, we have actual corruption.
What the acclaimed perception of India is. Apple recently opened its first shop in India, in Mumbai, and soon thereafter in New Delhi. The result of which was that CNN reported that everyone in business loves India these days.
Economy fundamentally has really turned a corner. There's something going on in India in terms of industrialization, manufacturing coming back, that over beyond the near-term slowdown, really we're looking at very solid fundamentals.
Why do you think that is? That's a very big story that a lot of people have started to talk about, industrial-based manufacturing capacity. Why do you think that is, and does that continue?
It's a big story, and I would argue one of the biggest stories in Asia right now. I've been following Asia for decades, and it was always said India was services-led.
Hotstar in Hyderabad might have the best engineers. I don't know what AWS engineer is. I'm not from a STEM field, but the entire World Cup was watched on Hotstar and it did not crash. That is a mind-boggling achievement.
Export services doing very, very well, but the manufacturing sector underperformed. But in India's stage of development, you need manufacturing come in to create those jobs, and that's happening. That's suddenly happening because of the China Plus One strategy, right? It's about foreign investment, and it's about some of the local reforms that the administration has delivered.
On some of the biggest fight weekends, even UFC's app crashes. ESPN Plus crashed because of one major UFC fight, I remember, but Hotstar never crashed.
And suddenly you see kind of the green shoots on manufacturing development. If they can sustain that, then India is really in play for one of the biggest powerhouses in.
Yes, Livingston, I forgot to make this point up until now, that some of this narrative thing is also important. This is how, first of all, build self-confidence among Indians. And self-confidence is no joke, guys. A lot of libertarians and atheists probably think it's bullshit. Self-confidence doesn't matter, but societal, national pride and self-confidence is very, very important. Any successful country का example तुम मेरे सामने ला दो, वहाँ पे तुम देखो कि इन लोगों का उस जो भी कंट्री का तुम एग्जांपल दोगे उस कंट्री का नेशनल या सोसाइटल सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस एंड प्राइड इज इन प्लेस. When that self-confidence goes away, that's when the country's downfall begins, like USA. So if that some of that social confidence is being built up because of this general narrative push, because of YouTubers, Jai Shankar, clips going viral, Palki Sharma, etc., it will have its benefits. It's not nothing.
In the world, frankly, on manufacturing, if they play their cards right.
First of all, I must say this is a cartoon that has been published in a weekly, in a German weekly. Like in India, Germany has freedom of speech and freedom of press, so basically it's not up to me to comment. But if you want to have my personal view, I must say the cartoon was neither funny nor appropriate. It plays with very old-fashioned cliches, and I would like to invite this cartoonist to come on a metro ride with me in Delhi. Delhi has a metro which is so state-of-the-art that I think many metros in Germany are not as good as Delhi Metro, and the same is valid for the train system. So I think he should inquire a bit more about India and know how.
Yeah, in this video you will get to know a bit of the suspicious things about Jayant Bhandari, because one example I told you that was on Twitter, that he will bring up the footage of parliamentarians beating up that smoke canister guy, and he will say that see Indian parliament is like African parliament, everyone is fighting amongst themselves, etc., instead of debating, etc. But here he will bring up this idea that everyone is talking about Mumbai being such a great financial hub, etc. But see how people travel in Mumbai, and he will show some footage of the Mumbai local trains being overcrowded. Okay, so does he not know that metros are coming up in Mumbai, or is he consciously and deliberately ignoring that and telling his viewers, who are mostly foreigners, that India is a bad place and don't go there because Mumbai is even Mumbai is such a bad place? Because he has admitted this himself, that he actively tells investors in the West to not invest in India.
State of the art the railway system is.
This is the cartoon that the German envoy was complaining about. A cartoon that I thought was extremely perceptive and showed a very good reality of life in India and a good comparison of India and China. Now let me address the German envoy to India. He said that come and travel in a metro in New Delhi. Now, he should have bothered going out of New Delhi, just 20 kilometers outside New Delhi, to really understand what India is like. There's virtually no public transportation.
This is what I was talking about when he was saying that China is a Disneyland. But has he bothered to go out the main cities of China and seen how the villagers of China live? He has not. He knows about India. He knows about the villages of India because he is an Indian. He has been to India so many times. But when he goes to other countries, he only goes to the cities of those countries because of that's his business dealing. That's the time he has been allotted to go to that place and handle some investment. So that's the kind of comparisons he's making.
In that country, metros are rare, and when the capital city gets subsidized metros paid off by the rest of the country, that does not represent the country. If he really wants to test out other suburban railways, he should try one in Mumbai, the most wealthy city in India. And let me show you a video of a train service in Mumbai. Exactly the reason why I never ever take a train or any kind of public transportation except for flights.
This is from 5 months back, okay? Just 5 months back. Before that, there has been so much halla between government versus environmentalists about bringing up the metro in Mumbai. He completely ignores that. This is why he might not be all that of an honest critic, okay? But that's not our concern, of course. We need to see what interesting criticisms he is making of India and how much of that is true and how much of that we can fix in the next generation. But this is a very lame argument because it's now being fixed because of the metro. He conveniently ignores it and goes on to tell his foreigner viewers that, see, this is the condition of Mumbai and it's going to go on being like this.
I had an incredible opportunity to spend more than an hour and a half with Prime Minister Modi, who is, I don't need to tell anyone here, he is the most popular world leader for a reason. He is unbelievable, visionary, and his level of commitment to the people of India is just indescribable and deep and passionate and real and authentic. And his desire to lift people out of poverty and move India forward as a global power is real, and it is happening. But the best part of the meeting for me was this. Anyone who knows Prime Minister Modi, all of you knows, he is a tech guy, and he is deep into the details. So I found myself at his home at 7:30 on a Friday night talking about the details of radio access networks and artificial intelligence. And it was just amazing. And I said to him, and I'll say this to you, in the years to come, there will be two ecosystems of technology, one consistent with our democratic values and another not. And I said to him, the United States and India need to lead the world together in this technology ecosystem. And without missing a beat, after he traveled all week, he said to me, well, Secretary, AI doesn't stand for artificial intelligence. I said, really? He said, AI is America-India technology ecosystem.
Now, I don't understand what was happening in the mind of Gina Raimondo and what the motivations of the US government is here in her speech. But the fact remains that she did not release the speech that she gave in India to the American audience, because American audience would have immediately sensed a rat there. I don't really fully understand what is she trying to achieve there. But if anyone still harbors a view that India can accept manufacturing moving out of China, if that at all ever happens, my suggestion is don't bother. The two countries are not comparable. But clearly,
Yes, not now. It will take some generations to, at least one generation to change. China also did not start by having a great educated workers. They were forced and browbeaten into manufacturing. के manufacture कर भोसड़ी के कहाँ जाएगा नहीं तो. That's how China's great manufacturing Disneyland came up. But the point is, he is saying that can India really take up the burden of manufacturing if from China? अरे पूरा का पूरा manufacturing shift होने का बात नहीं हो रहा है. This is how you know someone is a dishonest debater or any argument dishonest है कि नहीं. They talk about whether it's 0 or 100. या तो पूरा खराब है या फिर ये तुम कर सकते हो. अगर क्लेम कर रहे हो कि ये कर सकते हो तो पूरा 100% करो तो या फिर नहीं मत करो at all. That is not the case. India does not have to take up or replace China entirely. Okay, but it is going to take up. It is already taking up a lot of manufacturing burden from China. It does not have to take up, and China is not being eliminated off the face of the earth. No one is nuking China. Why do we need to replace China entirely in manufacturing? अजीब आदमी है.
Gina is lying. She is either clueless, either stupid, or she is just plain lying. The problem with you is that you, as citizens of North America, are getting misguided by these corporations because they want to get business from India, or they want to prove something to the Wall Street, and these bureaucrats, American
Livingston, what is CPR? Which organization is CPR?
bureaucrats or Canadian bureaucrats and politicians who want to gain some favor from Modi. You are getting fooled. Before
Why does she want any favors from Modi? What is the reason?
immigrating to Canada, I had set up Indian operations of two European companies. This was, of course, more than 2 decades back. While most of my career since immigrating to Canada has been in the resources sector, I have also advised multi-billion-dollar companies on investing in India. To most of those companies, my usual summary, details, and conclusion is don't bother. The reason is that the reason I left India was because I was sick and tired of corruption and dysfunctionality in that country. I had never met in India a public servant, either a bureaucrat or a politician, who did not ask for a bribe. If you want your water to continue to come, if you want your electricity connection to continue, and if you want your mail to be delivered to you, you must pay bribes. If you don't, your life will come to an end in that country.
And actually what libertarians don't understand is that cultural values, cultural pride, etc. does solve this to a large extent. And especially if it's a sort of a cultural reset like Hindutva is. It's not just any random Hindu devotee or devout Hindu getting included in Hindutva. No, that is not the case. The devout Hindus who vote for Congress, the devout Hindus who have forever voted for CPIM, the devout Hindus of Trinamool Congress, the devout Hindu Anubrato Mondol who has named all his illegal mills after Lord Shiva. Those kinds of people are not Hindutva. We are not including them in Hindutva. Hindutva is a sort of a cultural reset, even a religious reset if you will, and create a new grand narrative for India where these things will be looked upon as duties. And when you forget that your entire culture was about just duties, and not just about help me, dear God, help me get that hot girl, or help me pass that exam, or help me get that job. If your devoutness was all about that, or giving even thanks for getting a hot girl, giving thanks to the God for getting a job, if your devoutness was only for that, then you are not Hindutva. Hindutva is this reset which is going to solve some of these problems. But again, incentive structures also have to go away.
I was sick and tired of corruption in India. Now, I, of course, don't want you to judge India based on what India was like 20 or 30 years back, but at least that is the reason why I left India. I was sick and tired of corruption and dysfunctionality. Now, if Apple had come to me asking me for their advice, I would have said, don't bother. And the reason is, again,
yes, he actively goes around telling people that do not invest in India. That is where a big problem is. And okay, for guys who don't know, he is from Madhya Pradesh, Indore.
And very simple, despite the seemingly seductive market size of the country, which is 1.4 billion people, the problem is that the average GDP of that country is about $2,000 a year, which makes it among the poorest countries on the planet. Now, of course, the way the media romanticizes and glamorizes India does not leave you with that feeling, but it is a country that is among the poorest in the world.
Why does the media romanticize and glamorize India? This is what I don't understand. If India is in fact bad and has a disastrous future, he in fact says that India is going to become Afghanistan very soon. Why then is the media glamorizing India? Okay, you all might say then that USA was having a great friendship with Pakistan even, but back then when they were having a great relationship with Pakistan, even Pakistan's GDP growth rate was 10% when India's GDP growth rate was minus 2%. Okay, so if India is going to become Afghanistan, why does only he know it and no one in the US government knows it?
The world. The market size is very small. So the number of iPhones that will actually get sold in India will be minuscule. But here is another problem. Most of the GDP is actually accruing to a very small minority of Indians. Most Indians actually live a hunger diet. 800 million people must depend on constant supply of grains by the government. Now, this minority, which can actually afford to buy iPhones, that minority isn't going to confess to other Indians that they don't go to London for their weekend shopping. So my view is that the reason Apple opened their shops in India is not to gain more business, but to show to the Wall Street that there is still growth left in Apple. Virtually,
this might be a legit argument, but you see, that is not just Apple doing it, and that is not just Apple doing it in India. Every company in the IT field, basically, at least all the companies based in California, they have employed a lot of people for a lot of bullshit jobs which are going to go away in the financial reset. That is according to the Ankit Shah vision, and they will probably never get their jobs back because all these people were hired just to show people that sees we are employing so many people and therefore our growth rate is going up and up. So why don't you keep funding our company? That might be a fair argument, but I don't think Apple needs to go through so much of a hassle handling Indian bureaucracy, etc., just to show their growth rate.
Every company that I have ever come across that invested in India, a foreign company that invested in India, lost money. And this is for a very simple reason, that they think that India is very seductive in terms of the market size, but also when you look at India from afar, you realize that Indian wages are about $5 to $7 a day, even in urban areas. In rural areas, you get away with a lot less. Now imagine paying $5 a day.
Purchase power. Now see, he's deliberately fooling foreigners, right? Foreigners think, oh my God, so इतना कम सैलरी में खाता क्या है भोसरी के? तो हमारा चीजें यहाँ पे बहुत ही कम दाम में मिलता है. Hey dear foreigners, things are cheap here, okay? Purchasing power in purchasing power, we are the third biggest country. Let me listen to this in 2x.
For a full 12-hour work from people, without any vacation, without any sick leave, and without any weekends. The cost of labor looks very seductive. The problem is Indians don't have a work ethic, and Indians are extremely unskilled. That is
okay. Not having a work ethic is the result of his favorite Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who came up with this idea, and his chief economic advisor PC Mahalanobis, that we will have a socialist society where everyone will have a government job. Even today, CPIM party workers, if you ask them that, I was having a conversation a few days back with a CPIM party worker, lifelong CPIM party worker, who's very old. And I was discussing about Odisha's great development, that magical development that's going on in Odisha. And he said that, what has happened? Has any government employment happened? And I was left flabbergasted. I was speechless that, oh my God, they still don't even consider development unless people are employed in the government. So if you are employed in the government, if your society is only looking for government employment, if you only were dreaming of government employment as a child, then of course your work ethic will be bad. Okay? But unskilled, so yes, we know our primary education system was horrible. Again, that too because of Jawaharlal Nehru and all the later prime ministers as well, because we have never spent too much money on primary education.
That's why when companies come to me about my advice on investing in India, my usual response is, don't bother. Now, something else has happened over the last 30 years. Since globalization started, Indians started leaving the country. The very best of India started moving to the US and Canada and London. The technical people, the tradesmen of India, the plumber and the carpenters, started moving to the Middle East to...
Why? Why are they moving to the Middle East? Because of their skills? Or are they getting the skills outside? So we will just educate them here instead of in Saudi Arabia or in Dubai. Libertarians believe so much in magic.
To Malaysia, to Singapore, to Hong Kong, and even to countries like Papua New Guinea. So as time has gone by, the competencies, the average competencies and skill level of Indians have actually gone down, not up. Something else has happened in the government in India. When I was working in India, of course, every public servant asked for a bribe, but there was usually some shame associated with exchanging bribes. You used to use euphemism to exchange bribes. Those days have completely changed. Today, bribes are exchanged openly. They are asked for openly. And the quantum of bribes that are asked for has gone up significantly. No. It was believed earlier that if public servants...
This is fake news. This is absolutely fake news for hopefully some foreigner watching my video. Bribery as a concept is going down because of so much digitization, so many things you can do just online with your phone, with your laptop, etc. Bribery in general is going down. And the brazen bribery that he's talking about, that is also what that was used to be high in the past. It's not so high today.
In India got paid better, they would ask for less bribes. In fact, the exact opposite has happened. Now that they get paid extremely well, the kind of bribes they want is also extremely well. That is why, had Apple asked me about India, I would have recommended don't bother. Now, I went to a city called Indore, which is today considered to be among the cleanest and best cities in India, to do my graduation, my engineering degree. I lived in Indore for 5 years, and once there are many, many stories I could talk about of Indian environment, Indian ecology, but let me talk about one story. One day, a few boys from the university decided to visit a prostitute. The Indian police, the Indore police walked in, arrested all of them, took them to the police station. The men were allowed to go home. Their parents had to come the next day to give bribes to the policemen. Now, these men told me the next day that when they went to the police station to sign some forms, the prostitute was still at the police station and she could not walk. She had been raped by every single policeman at the police station. When I was in the university again, one boy, an underage boy, was sodomized by people in the university. When I went to complain about it to the university and the police, I was told not to bother reporting it. Of course, if I had reported, nothing would have happened, but they clearly told me that if I tried anything, I would suffer. Next morning, the boy disappeared without a trace. Again, I should not be judging India based on what used to happen 30 years back.
This entire narrative is fake. First of all, of course, these things happen in India. India is a big country. These crimes happen. It's not a fantastical thing. None of us are surprised hearing this news, right? But don't crimes happen everywhere in the world? Don't Chinese government officials disappear? Where did Jack Ma disappear for months all of a sudden, okay? But again, lower level corruption maybe does not happen everywhere. But if we are talking about comparing ourselves with... He is saying that we should not be compared with China. We should be compared with countries who have similar GDP per capita as ours. What happens in those countries? Do those countries produce Jayant Bhandari and Vivek Ramaswamy? Let's not compare these two people, but anyway. So it's not like no one disappears in USA. It's not like no crimes happen in the deep remote villages of America in the Midwest. Okay, so he has not been to any non-cities of any developed country. He is comparing India's mofusils and villages with the first world cities of other Western countries. That is the main problem here. And these stories from 20 years, he goes on bringing up stories from 20 years, 30 years back, and then says that we should not compare India with today's India with 20 years, 30 years back, but then goes ahead and does that.
So what I want to do now is fast forward to today. As I said, I continue to advise companies on investing in India. But interestingly, despite that I had completely stopped all involvement with India over the last 20 years, I had an occasion to meet some of the top bureaucrats in Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh is where Indore is very recently. And what I recognized was that the culture of bribes has gone up like the fish is traded in the fish market. It is blatant. And the higher you go in the hierarchy, the only thing that changes is the quantum of bribe that you must pay. These people openly blackmail you, openly take bribes, and have absolutely no understanding of the law. Now, remember what I told you about what happened to the technicians and intelligent people of the country. They left India over the last 30 years. Something similar has happened with the government. Because the top people have left the country, and also because of privatization and globalization, intelligent people can get better paid and have a better life with private companies. They no longer necessarily want to work for the government.
How is this a distinctly Indian thing? This is the norm in every country in the world, unless maybe Saudi Arabia, where it's as a royal family running the country. That is the norm. That is why libertarianism is better than socialism. That is why private companies are better functioning and use wealth and money more efficiently than the government. This is not a brand new fantastic thing that he has discovered.
So the quality of normal people trying to go into the government has deteriorated rapidly. Another thing has happened because of what is now known in the West as diversity inclusion policies. Something similar has been the case in India, where now between 50 to 70% of the people who join the government or actually even go to the technical institutes must be from the lower caste, which means that the quality of people joining the government has deteriorated very, very rapidly. I would say that a general employee of the government of India is petty, he's brain dead, and is thoroughly venal. And add all these things together and you realize that the quantum of corruption has actually exploded in that country. It's blatant, it's everywhere, as common as fish is in the fish market. Let me take you to two of the recent videos from Madhya Pradesh. And first is a video.
Yes, lobbying is legalized bribery. That's common in USA. The only people lobbyists don't fuck around with is Bernie Sanders, because they don't bother, because Bernie Sanders will never even take up a meeting with these guys. And another reason why Vivek Ramaswamy lost basically in the primaries, because his entire campaign was on small donations he got from people and $30 million that he put out of his own pocket. He did not take any big donors. Okay, so big donors run the entire system in USA.
From an office in Indore.
Yeah. Notice the difference here. Why is this old man behaving like this? Because he knows that this is how you get things done in a government office, because this is a system that was put into place by his favorite Prime Minister Jawaharlal fucking Nehru and P.C. Mahalanobis. The difference is, this bureaucrat is saying, don't do this. He is not saying, oh, it's great that you're doing this and therefore I will do your job now. The bureaucrat is instead saying, I won't tolerate this. Do not behave like this. That is the change we have to be happy with.
Now, what you saw in the video is exactly what happens in every single office in India. You must...
Not one fine morning. This was put into place by a socialist government. This is the core essence of socialism. Dependency on the government. Treating your government like a god. Treating your IS babus like a god.
Grovel and prostrate in front of these brain-dead, petty, venal officers. Without that, nothing happens. Because remember, everyone pays bribes. So you have to be submissive towards the bureaucrats before your work gets done. Now, the interesting thing here, which is just a bit of digression here, is that part of the reason why diversity and inclusion for the lower caste was adopted in the government, or at least the claimed reason, was to bring down caste behavior of Indians. What you clearly see is that the lower caste people are more caste conscious and more interested in proving that they are of the higher caste compared to other lower caste, that this is the behavior that they implement in government offices today. Now these are the days of trigger warning. So I must warn you about the next video. The next video will leave you extremely unhappy and extremely frustrated because there's a death in that video. But moreover, it will leave you frustrated because you will realize how unnecessary that death was. I will leave that video in loop while I speak because you really have to absorb what is happening in that country. And this video gives you a very good understanding, if you pay attention, of the economics of India. This is Indore. This is from a temple in Indore, one of the nicest, cleanest, and supposedly the best cities in the country, in the province of Madhya Pradesh, where I said corruption is as common as air is around you, and where the higher you go, the more bribe you must pay. That is the only thing that changes. Mafia runs across the country. Government offices today, they have direct control over what bureaucrats do, because the mafia and politicians and bureaucrats are in OG and OG together. What you see in this scene is a floor of a temple where many people had come to worship, and this floor was actually a roof of a stepwell, a historical stepwell, and this concrete that was there was so thin that it gave way. About 40 people fell into the well. Most of them died. There was no rescue effort. Imagine in a city of 3 million people, there was no capability to run a rescue operation. This is a country that claims to compare itself with China. It is absolutely idiotic to do this. Look at what is...
No one compares India with China. I have never heard any Indian right-winger say that we are as good as China right now, or we are better than China. We are saying that India is improving and someday we will catch up with China maybe. That is not the point here. The point is whether accidents happen in the West or not. But even if he says that this accident happened in the first place because of, again, the stupid Indian bureaucrats who built this roofing over this step well, they did a bad job. That is the nature of government jobs. Because his job will not go away even if this roof goes down. Okay, maybe some civil engineer will be fired, maybe not forever. He will again give some bribes and come back. That is the nature of government jobs. These things should be given to private companies to do. Now, even the private company in India, oh my God, in Gujarat, that bridge that came down right before the Gujarat elections, that was also made by a government job, made by a private company. So, much more honesty about which private company to give these tenders to, that needs to increase. But any anecdotal one incident can't be a proof of anything in India, because so many people, so many states, so many governments, so many numbers of incidents of corruption and accidents.
It's happening. The ladder is handmade. It is not capable of helping you with rescue effort. There's only one person trying to bring people out of the stepwell, and he has no helmet and no shoes. The cord that is being used to bring the woman up is all patchwork of small cords. The cord gave way, the knot wasn't made properly. But also remember that there's one guy trying to help out, whereas there are about 50 people, 100 people, supposedly fire people, supposedly policemen, supposedly rescue people, who are only shouting instructions, creating noise and doing nothing else except creating...
Yeah, well, how are 50 people going to jump down that ladder?
Chaos. That is the crux of the institution in India. A few economic lessons to learn here. There's no organization in that country. Venality, corruption rules the roost in that country, and 100 people do the job of one person, and then that job does not get done, it fails. And the woman died. So ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude my talk today on the economics of India. What happened was that in 1947, India became so-called independent of the British. Since then, the institutions of India have continued to get hollowed out. Its population has continued to grow because of green revolution, and its economy has started to grow about 30 years back because of Western technology. But all those low-hanging fruit have been plucked. India has been stagnating for the last several years now. India is literally falling apart. There is no rule of law in that country. The country is increasingly mafia-run, and the public
increasingly mafia-run. This is what I don't get. In the era of UPI, how can it be increasingly mafia-run? And let's talk about mafia in the West. Okay, when Uber was first coming up, the founder of Uber, I keep forgetting his name, he had to do so many deals with the taxi medallion mafia of all the big cities. Taxis were absolutely mafia-run. In entire USA, New York, Las Vegas was built by mafia. Okay, Trump has had so many dealings with mafia, Uber's dealings with mafia. So that is a norm even in USA. And that now is now better because of Uber, who is, by the way, not a profit-making company, who just keeps taking up more funding and only breaks even, and everyone goes home happy with their salaries. No one makes any profit. It's basically an NGO, a non-profit, Uber. But mafia is not a distinctive Indian thing.
Servants are not only corrupt as they were earlier, but completely shameless. So the question is, why did India deteriorate under Indian control? And here is the real problem. Something that people who grow up in the West fail to recognize. Indians don't have moral consciousness. Expediency and might is right are the driving forces.
Even if that is right, the antidote to that is Hindutva, actually, because we go back to our scriptures and we remember all of a sudden that, wow, it is supposed to be all about duty. And even if it is not duty, incentive structures, stronger government, etc., stronger accountability, all these things put together improves this particular problem we are talking about.
In India, the institutions had to fall away because there's no concept of righteousness, no concept of moral behavior in that country. If you are corrupt and if you get away with that, you are actually respected. As time goes by, contrary to the perception or claimed perception of Western bureaucrats and media that I showed you earlier, India is actually falling apart. It will degenerate and will become one big chaos over the next few years. And I haven't even mentioned the increasing Hindu fanaticism that is happening in the country.
Increasing Hindu fanaticism.
What should you expect? There are going to be more and more cultural influence coming to Canada from India. So you should be aware of it. Please just watch the video that I showed you. Keep that in your memory to understand and remind yourself of the economics of India, how unskilled, how wasteful that country is. And there's nothing to improve on that situation.
Then I know. How do those people get a job in Canada? How did you get a job in USA? How did you get American citizenship? Okay, this is what I don't understand. So is he saying that Canada, the West, Middle East, all these countries who are hiring people like him, or the craftsmen, tradesmen, etc., are they taking these people even if they don't have any skills or knowledge? How does that work?
Oh, it frustrates you no end. It frustrates me, used to frustrate me no end. But you must come to a realization that nothing can be changed about this. Things in India, the situation in India will continue to deteriorate. Brave, courageous claims by Gina Raimondo, CNN, Fareed Zakaria isn't going to make a dent to what is going to happen in that country. Thank you very much and enjoy the day.
Okay. Now, just to close our discussion today, we will check out his Twitter handle, which is very interesting. Because there you will see things look suspicious. Because like I said, that his single point agenda every day from the time he gets up to the time he sleeps on Twitter, each and every post, about 100 posts a day, is about how India is bad. One agenda, one topic on Twitter. I don't see how someone can operate like that unless he's paid for it. If he is an investor, he's sort of an independent consultant to people investing in the market or companies investing elsewhere. How can that person never talk about any like good food he just tasted, some great place he went, or what's going on in the world of financial markets, etc.? No. Every day, every post is about India is bad, India is bad, India is bad, India is bad, India is bad. That is pretty interesting. Let's check out the Twitter. क्या नाम है इसका? जयंत भंडारी. Capitalism and morality. That's his cover pic. You all can see everything, right? Okay. Now see the posts. Okay. You all know this SL Kanthan guy, right? SL Kanthan is probably more of an overt CCP guy. Okay. If you see his things, it will be like without a doubt he's paid by the Chinese government. Okay. So this is from 2023. What is India's foreign policy? Where does it stand on Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine issues? What about Manipur, where the genocide continues? A discussion. Okay, this is the one we just checked out. Here is a discussion on whether India is the next China. Okay, let's see his views. Smrata supported. Please see the video from the co-founder of an organization who is one of our partners. Why has he shared this? Oh, this is an ad. Okay. Let's see. India is one big blob of chaos and irrationality. Its manufacturing processes, systems, organizations, infrastructure, traffic, and relationships reflect this. The government gives dreamlike hopes which the middle class uncritically latches onto. This is India's structure or lack thereof. That's his famous article. Okay. How much of India do you think reflects in the following? Let's see what was written. To put it in a nutshell, that primitive man has no sober moods at all, that he is hopelessly and completely immersed in a mystical frame of mind, incapable of dispassionate and consistent observation, devoid of the power of abstraction, hampered by a decided aversion towards reasoning. He is unable to draw any benefit from experience, to construct or comprehend even the most elementary laws of nature. For minds thus oriented, there is no fact purely physical, nor can there exist. So he's saying that Indians are too religious and therefore it's a problem. Meanwhile, there's transgenderism going on in India and in USA, and communism in China. I understand a lot to do with the Indian psyche, but I fail to understand how they imagine the future to be real and then compare the future India with other countries. What was the point? Indians are the most unreliable, unrealistic, delusional, and incompetent people on earth. They always make fake promises and speak in the future tense. India will do this, sir. India will do that, sir. But in the end, they just fail miserably and end up postponing their superpower. Let's see what's the problem. Let's see. क्या हो गया ये इसमें? India will send astronaut into space by 2015. India aims to send astronauts into space by 2022. Indian economy to reach $5 trillion by 2022. PM Narendra Modi. And after that COVID happened, he's conveniently ignoring that. Oh, look at this. It's a Chinese guy. Interesting. India to be $5 trillion economy by financial year 28. Yes, because COVID is not going to happen anytime soon, we hope. Okay, so interesting. This is a sort of a Kaushik Basu argument that why didn't India grow at the rate of 8% even when COVID happened? Let's see. Only the facade of India has been invested. Okay, in terms of astronauts being sent to the space, he was saying in some posts. Now we are not going to look at that many of his tweets, but he did say that the fact that India sent so many spacecrafts to the space or to the sun recently, even that does not matter. That is useless, okay, according to him. He said that India is sending those missions to the space only to tell the world, to give this facade of a successful country, to get in more investments, whereas you should not invest in India because those spacecrafts are not going to give any real information, okay? That was his point. Now he's saying that India promised to send astronauts. Now they have not been able to, because of course COVID did not affect anyone. Only the facade of India has been westernized, and even there they have mostly copied the low-class aspects of the West: promiscuity, drugs, divorces, twerking, etc. Contradictions about the people. On the one hand, they seem reasonably westernized and educated. On the other hand, they have no qualms in going back to the 12th century and allowing themselves to be infested with quackery, superstition, and illogical fears with mythology. If you have lived here long enough, you also realize that things that are wrong, impossible, go wrong, malfunction in India. It is as if by magic things go wrong. This is the only way I can express what happens. Yes, of course, he is the biggest believer of magic, as we have seen up until now, that he thinks things magically happen nicely in the West, or because that race is superior. There's no history of wrong economic decisions in India that has led India to have such problems. Okay, enough of this. Now let me check some comments and then we will go offline. It seems like he has a Chinese mistress. He gets no. Okay, verified Chinese too. Bro, did you pick on Jant Bhandari? Did you? Because I demanded it in past comments. Yes, that's when I found out about that channel. This was fun. He just keeps supporting racists of all kinds. Yes, yeah. He even shared the videos of and the tweets of Owen Benjamin even, and said that Owen Benjamin is absolutely right. So take from that what you will. Okay then, good night guys. This was a great discussion we had. So we need to keep in mind the legitimate criticisms he did make. We need a lot of things to improve, but not all of his criticisms are correct, and he might not be an honest guy in the first place. But if we have some problems, we have those problems. It does not matter who pointed out those problems, okay? Dada, there needs to be realistic take on India. Yes. Good night, guys. Thank you for joining.